networks of other networks. They are, in other words, fractal or scale-free. That is, they have the same structure and operational logic at every level. And I believe that for universities to survive, these networks are going to have to expand. The principle of autonomy is going to have to give way to relationality, in which competitors, erstwhile competitors, are going to have to learn to cooperate. Not only similar institutions like other colleges and universities, but other not-for-profit organizations like museums, dance groups, symphonies. We're going to continue to need state, local, support from state, local, and international governments, but we know we can't rely on it as we launch the greatest public university system, perhaps in history, dissolved during our very own time. And, most controversially, we're going to have to expand the relationship between the university and for-profit companies and organizations. I say expand because people in the arts and humanities tend not to realize to what extent the university is already in the business of business. From 2004 to 2007, our institution of Columbia made $480 million from technology transfer. In 2007, the total profit from technology transfer was greater than the total budget for the arts and sciences. And Nick Dirk says, moving forward, those departments and divisions that do not produce revenue streams will not be privileged. The emerging global education network is a network of networks ranging from particular courses, erstwhile programs, departments, divisions, colleges, universities, and beyond. This educational network is, in turn, embedded in other networks to form a co-evolutionary web. And by this, I do not mean the company. I mean what I'm trying to envision is a global education network as a structure here. But that network is going to be embedded in all of these other networks. This network of networks forms a worldwide web that is a variation of what Hegel called absolute mind. And last night, Bernard spoke to us of the category of spirit, which of course in Hegel is Geist, which translates either mind or spirit. And of course, Geist is also ghost, since it's Good Friday. What if the tale I've been spinning is a ghost story? What if there is a specter haunting the world today? In the preface to his 2002 novel, Prey, Michael Crichton quotes a 1980 NASA paper by Dwayne Farmer and Alida Berlin called Artificial Life, The Coming Evolution. Dwayne Farmer is a very, very interesting guy. And a lot of stuff on artificial life, published most of it at Santa Fe Institute. Here's the text that is the epigram of the novel. Within 50 to 100 years, a new class of organisms is likely to emerge. These organisms will be artificial in the sense that they will originally be designed by humans. However, they will reproduce and will evolve into something other than their original form. They will be alive under any reasonable definition of the word. The pace of evolutionary change will be extremely rapid. The impact on humanity and the biosphere could be enormous, larger than the Industrial Revolution, nuclear weapons, and environmental pollution. We must take steps now to shape the emergence of artificial organisms. And I conclude with a question. What if these emerging superorganisms become self-conscious? Thank you. So we have a little bit of time, but not so long. You know, it's a lot, it's not linear. So you've got to try to answer your question. I know a lot of us news people don't want to hear. Yes.
Thank you, first of all, very much for this talk. It was really provocative, and as a graduate student about to embark on a tenure track job that may keep me there until 2030, it certainly leaves a lot some drawbacks to this kind of way of thinking about education and about university structure, because in a way I'm kind of surprised to hear myself asking about this, because I come from very much an art school background. I went to Sarah Lawrence, where the education looked more like the Google model than the Com model. But as I've gone through my graduate education at Berkeley and have taught, one thing that I run into with these kinds of proposals is, how do you develop or how do you establish a common ground for conversation in a classroom? I mean, this is on the most practical level. And how do you not lose context entirely in presenting material? I mean, I'm an historian, so as a historian, it's an incredibly conservative discipline. It's and you are ultimately grounded in a body of knowledge. But I see the drawback, the danger of kind of the hypertextual approach in the classroom as essentially students can lose a common framework for conversation. And anyway,
Right,
several
responses. The model of the kind of classroom that you're talking about, I don't think it will completely disappear in my life, certainly not my lifetime, and I don't know about it. But it's going to become much, much less common. If I were to talk about the financial situation in the university world from the side of the university, it's unsustainable. Tenure is unsustainable. It's unsustainable financially. I think it's unsustainable in the defense of intellectual, but I know it's unsustainable financially. So I don't think it has to necessarily be either or. I think that for some schools like Williams or Columbia or some of these others, we will continue to have this. But you saw the numbers. You saw the numbers. And whatever they're paying is only covering 2/3 of what it costs to produce that product. So the question becomes, how can one imagine delivering, if it's important for people to read Hegel, and I think it is, or whatever, how can one imagine doing education in a way that will facilitate? I mean, you can't do Hegel this way. That's it. Now, on the question of common life, I mean, one of the things you have to ask yourself, and you certainly have to ask yourself this as graduates, but I think even as educators of undergraduates, what are we educating them for? Knowledge for knowledge's sake only works if somebody else is paying the bills. They're not going to pay $150,000 a year for knowledge's sake. So what the humanists have to do, I mean, the problem, go back to Kant. If you ask anybody the value of liberal arts education, what do they say? Critical thinking. Critical thinking, which is thinking about thinking, right? The utility, the very value of the philosophical curriculum is its uselessness. The reason Global Education Network failed was because it was for profit. Though the profit wasn't for us, it was for the schools. But the commitment to non-utilitarian principles in people in the art, the sciences were fine. The sciences have been, they've been entrepreneurial for a long time because they have to. So, foundation, yeah, for what? History. What area of history? All right, so think about, all right, so let's think about how knowledge is structured here. Basically, in humanities, there are two principles, organizational principles, time and space. What possible sense does it make to have a Department of Russian, which is based upon nation-state model in a globalized world? So it's either nation, or we do it by tradition, but then we